No, y'all, can we talk about it? Can we please talk about it? Let's take a moment to discuss. Let's take a moment to debrief. Let's take a moment to unpack. So I'm not really understanding why they're not telling y'all. Like, we all know that the world is behind, like, globally, like, because of the pandemic and stuff. But I don't understand why they're not stressing to y'all how bad it is. Like, I'm not even trying to be funny, but these kids are... I'm going to just say this. I teach 7th grade. They are still performing on the 4th grade level.
So recently there's been this discussion all over YouTube, all over TikTok, about how Gen Alpha can't read, how they are way behind academically, performing 2 or even 3 years below the grade level they're supposed to be at. They don't listen to or respect authority, and they're all iPad kids whose brains have been rotted by social media. Young teachers are even leaving, apparently, because their classrooms are so unruly. There is even a hashtag teacher quit talk where teachers, especially first-year teachers, vent about how they feel they are overwhelmed, under-equipped, and underfunded. So in this video, let's go through some media to get a sense of how teachers are responding to this situation, how parents are responding to this situation, and really, most importantly, how Gen Alpha is doing as a generation, as the youngest cohort of citizens in our country.
I don't care how you flip it, turn it, swing it, swindle it. They still performing on the 4th grade level. Ain't nobody talking about how they just keep moving, passing them on. They just keep passing them on, 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 passing them on. I can put as many zeros in this grade book as I want to. They're going to move that child to the 8th grade next year. Ain't nobody talking about that. Why they not talking about that? Why they not telling y'all that y'all... And why don't y'all know that y'all kids not performing on their grade level? Why y'all don't know this?
You'll notice this as a common theme with Gen Alpha's schooling, the state of modern public education. Children are not allowed to fail. Instead of allowing them to simply face the consequences of their actions and flunk out of school if they're not interested, teachers and administration bend over backwards to pass these kids. This is in part because of No Child Left Behind, but also because of the progressive viewpoints that public school teachers tend to hold, placing emphasis on values such as equality and equity.
Why y'all don't know? Talk about it. Let's unpack. Because y'all be quick to talk about, oh, the teacher this, the teacher this, the teacher. It's your job, baby. I just got here 30 days ago. She was performing on the 4th grade level since 4th grade. Why we not talk? Well, let's talk about it. You the teacher. You supposed to be, again, she's been on the 4th grade level since the 4th grade. We in 7th grade now, so you let this child go 3 years and you never knew that your child was still in the 4th grade, ain't never left the... Hang it up, flat screen. In 4th grade is being nice. I still have kids performing on grade K, 1, 2, and 3rd grade levels. I could probably count on one hand how many kids are actually performing on their grade level. So just imagine, you don't know that your child been on the 2nd grade level since the 2nd grade and they now in the 7th or 8th grade? Are you joking right now? And these are future leaders, our future doctors, our future nurses, our future... Please. Please.
The situation is abysmal. We are witnessing the total failure of the public education system. And COVID and lockdowns during COVID were really a sort of accelerant. You'll see with a lot of the media, a lot of the viewpoints that teachers are expressing on this issue that kids, even before the pandemic, were struggling, had issues, had problems, were having trouble focusing, were basically already iPad kids. And then during COVID lockdowns and then after COVID lockdowns, it's just made things worse. To make an analogy, it's like rotting wood on a pier. And after a while, there's just so much weight, and the wood is so rotted that it just gives out, and you fall right between the boards. As an archetype of person, I generally don't like public school teachers. They tend to have this very inflated sense of self-worth. They think they're doing more than they actually are. They're not actually effective at preparing the youth for real life in the real world outside of school. And these days, more and more, we're seeing them push their sick politics in the classroom and all too frequently have inappropriate relationships with students. But the issue here is much larger than just teachers. It has to do with parenting as well.
I'm bitter, and I have a right to be. Because now everybody's getting on here talking about how Gen Alpha is a mess. Can't read, badly behaved, not nurtured, raised by an iPad. Back in 2020, start of the pandemic, I was 18 years old. I hadn't even decided I wanted to become a teacher yet. That wasn't even a thought yet in my mind. I made a video about it saying this pandemic was going to destroy the new generation. And everyone had a problem. All my comments, you don't even have kids. You can't have an opinion on this. Wait till you have your own kids. You're mommy shaming, you're parent shaming. Some of these kids, 2, 3 years old, have iPads and they seem perfectly fine. We don't even know if it's going to stunt their development yet. Now you're up on here begging for help with your 5-year-old because you don't know what to do when they throw a temper tantrum after you turn the TV off. I had a 30-some-odd-year-old couple make 7 videos in a row about me on their page saying, our 2-year-old daughter uses an iPad and she's fine. Her development's perfectly normal. No problems. How's your 5-year-old now? Can she read? How are those report cards? How are those parent-teacher meetings? You still watching? Because I've been here. Some of us have been here. We've been saying this. Raise your kids. Get it together. I became a teacher for a reason. I also stopped being a teacher for a reason because you people are not raising your children and you want us to do it for you, but your child sucks. Your child has no concept of the real world and how it works because you sat an iPad in front of its face and let it put its sticky fingers all over the screen for the first 4 years of its entire life, living inside the house, stuck inside the house. Because there was a virus outside. How's your kid's immune system? Can it read?
This profession has become nothing more than glorified babysitting. And it seems, for the most part, the majority of parents are perfectly fine with that. They expect teachers and the internet to do the legwork in raising their children because they're lazy and already addicted to the internet themselves. These intergenerational wars you sometimes see people engaging in, where Zoomers will blame Boomers for everything that's wrong with the country, or Boomers will blame Millennials, these are not constructive, healthy conversations. But I am not surprised that these are the fruits of millennial parenting. These are the excuses they made to just put their kid on an iPad instead of actually raising them. Even when I was a young child, before the whole millennials are responsible for everything wrong media blitz, I never really liked millennials as a whole, and I thought they were very navel-gazing. They seemed very self-absorbed. As a whole, they seemed to me like these entitled activists, and some, I assume, are good people. But but it's no surprise that young people generally, who already have this ethos and attitude towards the world where they're burnt out and struggle to do basic tasks, just ready to go goblin mode, as some people have called it. It's no surprise that people who feel this ill-equipped to cope with modern life would then just throw their kids to the wolves, so to speak. They already have issues with discipline and staying motivated, so this is going to compound progressively over the generations. And I'm not even suggesting that Gen Z is any better. America totally underestimated how detrimental the internet would be on our collective well-being. And sometimes you'll see people sort of poke at this idea that things are getting worse by saying, oh, people have been saying that forever. Older generations have always been complaining about how younger generations are doing. But we have clear-cut results here in Gen Alpha. They are qualitatively, measurably, less literate, less functional, more poorly behaved, and less competent than any previous generation in living memory. From millennials to Gen Z to Gen Alpha, we are seeing this inarguable pattern of social decline. This is so noticeable. People in my generation, Gen Z, who are newly minted public school teachers, have taken notice of it.
Your outfit is so cute today. It's such a sleigh. You still say sleigh? You're a grandma. You're a grandma. Spell restaurant.
All right, hey, all right. Spell restaurant.
Wait. Dear God. R-E-S-T-U-R-A.
Nope.
No. R-E-S-T. Oh, wrong.
You're so close.
R-E-S-T-E-R. Give it. U-R. R-E-S-T-U-R-A.
Nope.
What?
Nope. Oh, you're not spelling it?
R-E-S-T-A-U-R-A-N-T.
Thank you. Oh.
They can barely spell. which is ironic given the amount of media they interact with. And not only that, I personally know people who are new teachers who are reporting this exact same experience. Just the other day, I was at the gym and I was talking to this woman who I went to college with, who is now, I think she's like a student teacher or is in the process of becoming a full teacher. She's like finishing her degree. And she told me the same thing. Gen Alpha couldn't spell restaurant. None of them are at grade level. A friend of mine's fiance, she has a class of 30 students. 2 of them out of 30 are actually proficient in both math and reading. And a handful are proficient in one or the other. And it doesn't stop there with academics. They're also brats, apparently.
Young Gen Z teachers are talking about the poor behavior of Gen Alpha students, and some of y'all are finally starting to believe us when it comes to how much we've missed the mark on raising these kids right. Because I have gray in my hair and I'm 36 years old, people tend to tune me out as soon as I open my mouth when I start talking about these issues we're seeing in the classroom with our kids these days. So before I go on, why don't we review some of the evidence from some of the other creators on this app who might be a little bit more of a relatable age.
This is my folder of crying teachers, and they are confused and frightened by the behavior of Gen Alpha. They're saying Gen Alpha is defiant, aggressive, disrespectful, and rude.
Having to teach and work with you guys as children has been the most traumatic experience of my life. They don't respect any authority. You ask them, can you stand in your designated spot? They're telling you no and shut up. They're throwing things at each other. They're throwing things at other people, other classmates. You say, can everybody sit in their spot? I don't want to. I'm not doing that. You don't get to tell me what to do. You're not my mom.
Like, I'm not even trying to be funny, but these kids are... I'm going to just say this. I teach 7th grade. They are still performing on the 4th grade level.
I'm a middle school teacher. I'm also 22 years old. And I will tell you, by far, we are doomed. Like, these kids do not care. Like, I have kids, all they want to do all day long is get high. Like,
I need to ask millennials, why are your kids so awful? And more importantly, why do you think it's so funny? Your kids cannot read. They cannot write. They are ill-mannered.
I've been trying to sound the alarm about Gen Alpha students and their poor behavior in their classrooms, as well as their literacy problems, since May of last year. But because of my age and how I look, every time I make a video about these topics, I'll get people that have never worked with kids or have never spent a day in the classroom as an educator give me lines like, well, you're just old and jaded. If you don't like it and you can't handle it, quit and find another job. Kids have always been like this. Nothing's new in 2023. And then we've got the droves of people that are trying to blame it on COVID and trying to blame it on the lockdown. Us not having any sympathy or empathy for students with special needs, even though I never talk about those types of students. And I'm always talking about general population students and the fact that this is an overarching problem with every single kid, even the high achievers, even the ones that don't need IEPs, even the ones that are highly socialized and have a lot of resources coming from home. Teachers that have been in this for 1, 2, 3 years are seeing it and they are talking about it. Teachers that are veterans like me that have been in the classroom for over a decade or 2 or 3 or nearing retirement are also saying the same thing. Your children are missing the mark on discipline. They're missing the mark on education standards. They're missing the mark on literacy. They're missing the mark on socialization. We can blame it on COVID. We can blame it on iPads raising our kids. We can blame it on the fact that kids don't socialize with each other enough. We can blame it on the economy and the fact that parents don't have time to help their kids learn how to read or don't have time to take their kids to the park anymore. We can blame it on all of those things or we can blame it on none of those things. But it sounds like we're starting to get into a consensus here amongst educators that we have a real problem. And some of y'all need to stop making excuses. You're just blaming the kids. You're just so mean. No, we are not. The problem is that we have this generation of parents that doesn't want to take accountability for not doing what they need to do to raise kids that are self-sufficient, that are socialized, or kind. And no, it's not the kids' fault. And why does it seem like teachers are the only ones that are talking about it? The people that are talking about it are the ones that work with the kids and not the ones that are raising the kids. Gen Alpha have been raised to believe that they are grown folks, that they can speak to whoever they want, however they want, that violence is the answer. Gen Alpha students are raised in a world that tells them that it's okay to be as nihilistic and individualistic as possible, that they don't have to care about anything or anyone, that they can speak to anybody however they want to speak to them, even though they're only 10, 11, or 12 years old. Most importantly, they are being conditioned to believe that they are immune to consequences, that there are no consequences to their poor behavior, to their rudeness, to their lack of care in completing tasks and doing well in school. They just don't care. Is this us demonizing kids for fun? No, it's not. The people that are talking about this are genuinely concerned. We are frightened for these kids. And if you're sitting back saying, oh my God, poor babies, like, I wish you would just quit talking about them because you're just being mean and it's not even helpful because kids are just kids, you are doing them absolutely a disservice to their future. This is not just an old people complaining about young people problem anymore. Young people in Generation Z, young teachers who are seeing the same thing I'm seeing with my two eyeballs, are talking about the same thing. You can call it an old folks complaining about young folks thing. Why are you demonizing millennial parents? Why are you demonizing Gen Alpha kids? Or you can step back and look at it from our perspective and say, gee, I wonder why there's so many people talking about the same thing. I wonder why there's so many teachers that are concerned about the same thing. We cannot even begin to talk about solutions until we admit there's a problem. Most of you whom are parents, because y'all are the ones that matter. I don't even care about the ones who are just trolls and are sitting back saying, school doesn't matter, yap, yap, yap. Mayor of Yapville, who cares? I don't care about you either. I'm talking to parents. If you are not ready to admit that there's a problem here, we cannot get anywhere near even talking about the solutions. We cannot raise a generation of kids that are this tuned out, that are this rude, that are this violent to each other, to adults, to people younger than them. We just can't do it.
I will say two things. I will say that we need to bring back corporal punishment in schools, and as the mayor of Yapville, school doesn't matter. Honestly, when I have kids, and I plan to have kids, I plan to have many kids, I will teach them that public school is a bad environment for them. Public school teachers do not have a vested interest in teaching you basic skills for life or basic skills to make you a productive member of society. They just want to mold perfect citizens. Nothing I learned in all the years I went through public school turned out to be relevant in the workplace as an adult. So I plan on teaching my kids plumbing and coding, some sort of practical trade skill, and how to code. I think those are the two main skills they need to learn. And if one of them feels like going on to college and doing law, then they can go on to college and do law. But really, it's like one or two actual subjects which are important and earn them money in real life. The rest of school is just a bunch of propaganda and a waste of time that doesn't prepare you for anything. Because this is a society-wide failure, what's going on here. We can't point fingers at any one individual group. The thing a lot of people don't understand when we have these conversations is that every generation has its pros and cons. Pound for pound, your average boomer is better than your average Gen Z on policy issues. They're more articulate, they're more disciplined, they have more money in the bank, they're more competent, generally speaking, and they have better social skills. But what prevents boomers from understanding Zoomers, where this huge generational disconnect comes into play, is because boomers both had a better work ethic, but then lived life a million times easier. You could buy a house on a single income when they were growing up. You can't do that today. That's just not possible. So they look at Zoomers, and even the boomers that are semi-aware, that are semi-cognizant of what's going on, and there's very few of them, they look at Zoomers, and then they blame Zoomers. Like, I've had this moment where I'll encounter a boomer, and they're like, oh man, at least our generation knows what a woman is, ha ha ha. And I'm like, where do you think Zoomers learn this stuff? Who do you think taught Zoomers to be leftist maniacs? Who runs these gender studies classes in college? It's not Zoomers. Zoomers aren't coming out of the womb, gender studies professors, teaching the other Zoomers to act crazy. No, every single social cancer began with the boomer generation. And 90+% of them have yet to realize this. They are utterly unaware of what's going on. They have no idea how we got here. And boomers are not even as conservative as they think they are. This image of old people being these crusty right-wing conservatives who vote Republican and are out of touch with reality comes from the greatest generation and the silent generation. Boomers are not actually that conservative. Boomers are the ones who taught Zoomers to believe in gender studies. They're more disciplined than subsequent generations, but they're not as disciplined as they think they are, which is important. Another important thing is that now corporal punishment is seen as wrong, seen as harmful. People today no longer have physical stressors as much as they do emotional stressors because we have this unprecedented lack of physical danger. That is part of what's led to this rapid social change we see. We are increasingly undisciplined because we are increasingly insulated from the consequences of our actions. You're not in this environment where you're worrying about some lion on the savannah. So instead, you have taxes or something to worry about. All your fears are projected onto these other things, and people just aren't able to cope with it. You'll see this and that study saying that corporal punishment is wrong for children. But people are less mentally healthy than ever. I understood this intuitively as a child. The further away we get from the past, the less normalized corporal punishment becomes, but the more mentally unhealthy people are. It doesn't make any sense. Solomon, the wisest man in history under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, said, "He who withholds his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him diligently." Outside of forcing every kid to take sports, I don't know how you could solve this discipline problem, because some things simply can't be reasoned with. You can't reason with a child. They have to respect your authority at some point. There's got to be a degree of unaccountability. You set the rules. You're in charge. But, if you're throwing a kid to just swipe on an iPad all day, they're never going to learn that discipline. You're not actually interacting with them. And they're also going to be disrespectful to teachers at school. And the teachers, of course, can't punish them and can't fail them. So there are no consequences. The silver lining in the future is that kids will be so anti-intellectual and uneducated that they'll never be able to buy into the same lies that millennials and to a lesser extent Gen Z bought into. This nonsense they teach in colleges. They won't be able to buy into that because they have 15-second attention spans. They can't spell restaurant even though they're in 5th grade. And it's questionable, therefore, that they'll even be able to go to college. The onset of this social change will be very rapid, and suddenly we won't be in Kansas anymore. It's going to be this incredible, fast-paced change. Gen Alpha will view issues on this very moment-to-moment basis. It'll be whatever event stokes the most outrage. And we'll see a level of social change which I believe will be able to flip on and off like a light switch. Their opinions will be less set in stone and less fixed in the same way that millennials and Gen Z's opinions are. Gen Alpha's opinions will be dictated by algorithms in a way that Gen Z and Gen Alpha's opinions weren't. And because this is all happening on TikTok, the regular mainstream media isn't in control of it here. That's an important distinction to make. I don't know if you want to call this development a silver lining, but it's definitely a change of pace. Anyway, that's just my opinion. If you have your own, voice it in the comments, by all means. And if you really like this video, please share it, because that's the #1 way you can grow this channel. Anyways, this has been Red Channels, and I will catch you in the next one.
When he gets like this, I just don't know how to make him stop.
Have you ever tried beating his ass?
What's the belt?
People, you must have lost your goddamn mind! I guess I just hate to see a child go unbeaten.
if you're ever fighting somebody, don't bang their head against the ground. They'll charge you with attempted murder if you go to the cops.
Really?
Hell yeah. And if you fight a pregnant woman,
How old are you?
15.
You look 33.